You're listening to Soundside. I'm Paige Browning. For Sonia Raman, becoming head coach of a WNBA basketball team wasn't originally in the plans. Sure, she grew up playing the sport, but when her college career ended, she went on to earn a JD from Boston College Law School, and then she did what many of us do. She got a regular office job. So how do you go from working in the U.S. Department of Labor to starting this year as head coach for the Seattle Storm? Here to discuss her journey to coaching and how the season's shaping up for the Storm is Coach Sonia Raman. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Paige.
So I hear you did not start out as a basketball player. Maybe it was soccer at first. What got you interested in hoops?
Yeah, I played organized soccer when I was little, starting in kindergarten all the way up. Moved to Massachusetts in the fifth grade. And once I moved there, just started, like, my soccer teammates played basketball, and I started to play more unorganized, just like recess, after school, before school, playing with the neighbors. And I loved it. So I was able to get into a league. But it was late. It was like eighth grade when I finally got into an organized basketball league and just absolutely loved it and never left the game after that.
Okay, that's showing some promise for people getting into a sport later, because you started
I
in
don't know.
eighth grade, and you went in to play in college at Tufts University.
I
And
wouldn't recommend it. I think I could have used a little bit more grounding in the fundamentals when I was younger, for
okay,
sure.
fair enough. Well, how did you go from being a player to a coach?
I had an injury when I was in college,
And that was at
and I
Tufts?
yes, at Tufts. But even before that, I would spend my summers working basketball camps.
Hmm.
That was kind of my summer gig. I coached my high school team in a summer league, so I was sort of just gravitating towards doing it without realizing what I was doing. But once I had the injury and I couldn't play anymore, the only way I could find to contribute to the team, to my teammates, was just from the sidelines. And so
Hmm.
finding ways to try to help impact, those around me and contribute. And a lot of that, observation and trying to lead a little bit, trying to encourage, pour confidence into my teammates. Like, a lot of those things came from my time on the sideline when I was injured. And I think that was what kind of got it started for me.
Hmm. I want to ask a little bit more about your background, because people who watch you on the sidelines can see your coaching, but don't always know about who this person is, who is Coach. So you took a break, I'm guessing, from basketball after college, after Tufts University, to go get a law degree from Boston College. What was your thought process at the time? You were going to leave basketball? Why?
Yeah, I actually, right after college, I stayed on at Tufts and was an assistant coach there for a couple seasons, and then went to law school. And at that point, basketball just felt like it was probably a hobby more than anything else. I didn't really think that it could be, a full-time profession. It just wasn't something that I even realized was in the cards for me. So, went to law school, got my degree, was coaching a little bit and scouting a little bit on the side, and then, started working for the U.S. Department of Labor. And somewhere along the way, I think in my first year with the Department of Labor, a head coach from Wellesley College reached out to me
Mm.
and asked me if I could come in and help out with their team as an assistant that season, because she was going to be out on maternity leave and they weren't going to have enough coaches once she left. So I thought to myself, I can do anything for a year and I can make it work. I can get into
Sure.
work early, leave work early, and go, help out and just give back to this game that I love so much, and coach those women. And I never left once I started doing that.
Yeah. And then you ended up at MIT for how long as head coach?
12 seasons.
12 seasons. And you made them the winningest that they had been
Mhm.
in school history. Were you going to say something
Yeah,
there?
no, I was just going to say it was just a really, rewarding experience, and I felt really fortunate to be in that position and to work with the women that I worked with on the coaching staff and the players as well. It was just a really tremendous opportunity to build something, and
Yeah.
I loved it.
For people listening who haven't followed your career as closely, you then went on to be with the Memphis Grizzlies and then the New York Liberty. Now you are with the Seattle Storm. You're the head coach. How does it feel to be at the helm?
Feels great. To be here in particular with the Seattle Storm, just an organization that I've always had so much respect for, had been a fan of, before I was in the W, have family in the Seattle area, so I've
Hmm.
always kind of followed the Storm and just to be a part of this organization, the ownership group that we have, the front office, the players, and the fan base. This is just a great, as you all know, like this is a great sports city and a women's sports city. So to be here, to be able to, stand up there and lead and do that in Climate Pledge is just a dream come true.
Hmm. And I do have some questions about, how the team's doing this year. But can I just ask, is this the most fun team in the WNBA right now? You can say that now that you're not with the Liberty.
Yeah, they're a really fun team. They play with a lot of joy. They celebrate each other. We try to celebrate every positive thing that we do, and we try to turn the page to the next play,
Hmm.
regardless of what just happened as well. But they're a fun group. They enjoy each other very much, and you can see the chemistry out there.
There is just so much joy and so much spunk. I've heard the word spunky thrown around a lot about this Storm team, so really excited to see what happens for the rest of the season. I want to talk a little bit of shop. I've gotten to see a few matchups so far, and I know the team is currently on an 8-game losing streak. I got to see one of them against Los Angeles a week ago, and then caught the highlights from Friday's crushing game. The team was on its way to close a 15-point gap and then ended up losing by like 4 points to the Golden State Valkyries. And I just have to say before I ask this question, this is a safe space. I am a big fan. Many listeners have the Storm's best interests at heart. But I read in this outlet, High Post Hoops, quote, "The Storm are bad this season, and that's okay. They have the youngest front court in WNBA history. They only have 3 wins so far, but it's not hard to trust the process in Seattle." So, Coach, how do you feel when your team's talked about this way?
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand kind of the quote. I think there's a difference between, a bad team and a team with a bad record. I think this
Mm.
team is really growing and developing. Dom and Awa have only played 4 games together in
Wow.
all this whole season.
And no Ezzy.
And no Ezzy yet. We added Katie Lou back, later in the season as well. So, we have a very young team, and I think we have a team that's really, really committed to growth, to getting better. They're determined. You see that even when we get down, we always fight back. We find ways to hang around, to make it competitive so that we give ourselves a chance late in the game. And, I think
Hmm.
that's for where we're at, really proud of the growth that we've had. And obviously we want more and we're going to keep striving to do that and still, winning habits and championship habits and all of that. But, I think for where we are and for the youth that we have and some of the inexperience as well, just have seen tremendous growth from them over the past few games.
Great. And I should note, historically, this is a hugely successful franchise, and people really see the Storm, especially in Seattle, just see the Storm as a winning team, no matter the year. 4 championship trophies on the shelf. I'm curious what you want this year to be for the Storm. We have you as a new coach. We have a lot of new players, a lot of young players that you've noted. What kind of year is this? A winning year, a reset, something else?
Yeah, I think that laying the foundation with our culture was the number one thing we wanted to do. So, instilling those habits, instilling those championship habits, I think the Storm is absolutely, like you said, it's a team with championship DNA. We've done it as much as anyone else in
Hmm.
the history of the W.
Hmm.
And it's a privilege to have those types of expectations. And, we really embrace that. So that's absolutely where we're trying to get back to. So it's one step at a time, and you can't skip the steps. So it's important to, again, to lay that foundation, brick by brick, day by day, and, allow ourselves to continue to grow, with every step we take. But, the bottom line this year and what we want this year is we want them to compete, we want them to get better, and we want them to do it together and to play with joy.
Great. Just a couple more questions for you, Coach. You're
Mhm.
not just a hooper. You are a scholar, you're a lawyer, you almost had a career in law. So I want to ask about the way you think about court smarts. First, is it true you're running a no position offense? And either way, can you just talk about your strategy?
Yeah, I don't know. That might have gotten a little taken out of context somewhere along the way, and then
Okay.
people sort of ran with it. So, I think it's more about creating advantages and maintaining advantages on the
Mm,
offensive end. So, maintaining elite spacing, and then trying to find, there's several different ways that you can create an advantage in basketball. For example, like a pick and roll can create an advantage if you can draw two to the ball, or if you can draw help from somewhere along the way. And then the spacing becomes really important. How can you punish that help? How can
mm,
you create advantages where it's 4-on-3 once you move the ball? So instilling, it's more about the reads for them. So instilling that and just training up that decision making, training those reads every day, so it's not very scripted. And then, training that ball movement. So we have a really unselfish team. So it's just about seeing the
mm,
read and then moving the ball. And I think that's where we've seen a lot of growth. There's areas where we can have, maybe people who are traditionally considered forwards out on the perimeter. We can have people who are traditionally considered, guards or wings, setting screens. So you will
mm.
see some aspects of our game that are a little bit more positionless. And, I think as we grow, we can develop that more and more with the
Yeah.
versatility we have too with our players.
That's fun to watch. Sometimes I see like your bigs up toward the free throw line and
Mhm.
you're iterating as it goes.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
what has to happen to get the Storm out of this losing streak or to get a win here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really close to breaking through it, is how it feels to me. The challenge for the last game was there's a few things that we've been working on, game by game, and the things that we've spent more time on we've improved on, and then the things that we haven't spent as much time on as a result of that, we might have taken a step back. So the challenge was, let's put things together a little bit more on both ends of the ball, and I thought we did a really good job of that, and there
Mm,
was lulls that we had, obviously, especially in that third quarter. But I think that continuing to build on that. So what it takes is probably just that last bit, right? The winning in the margins. How can we limit the possessions of the other team, which means keep them off the glass. It means don't give them as many free throw attempts.
mm.
It means take care of the ball on our end. It means crash the boards on our end. So those are some of the areas in the margins that I think we can start to move the needle a little bit more while we continue to maintain the growth that we've had in our team defense and our ball movement offense.
Mm. Okay, final thing, this is a team, as I said, that people are using the word spunky, young, tall to talk about this team. A lot of international players are on this team. You're talking about it's all about the margins to get us to a win. What else should people know about the Storm?
I think just how together this group is and
Mm,
how much they care about each other in the organization. They're so invested, they're so bought in, and that's, I think, why you see that every day they come back and they're, to use your word, like spunky and energetic and gritty and all of those things, because their care factor is through the roof. And I think when you have that, you have a lot of opportunities to continue to improve.
yeah, I saw a quote from one player saying that they didn't expect to love it as much as they do, the culture of Seattle and the team.
Mhm. It's a great place, and they're enjoying it and they're understanding it every day that they're here.
Sonia Raman is the head coach of the Seattle Storm. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Paige.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org or on your favorite podcast app.